Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to Hudson River Computing and the Acumatica Lunch and Learn for June 9th, 2021. If we go on, we'll go through the agenda and kind of what we're going to cover today. So we're going to start with introductions, who is Hudson River Computing, and we'll talk a little bit about who Acumatica is. We'll talk a little bit about what our products are that you should take a look at that have some great benefits for our clients and prospects. Acumatica, kind of the company piece, what's it look like? And then we'll actually show you a little bit of Acumatica so you get an idea of how the product actually functions and how you can benefit from the product. If we go a little bit further, Hudson River Computing was founded in 1993, and we concentrated primarily on accounting systems at that point in time. Since then, we've kind of developed into an organization that carries kind of a broader sense of a product. We carry full ERP, manufacturing, distribution software, as well as CRM and things like that. So we've kind of branched out from beyond accounting. Part of that's the way over time the industry's grown and changed. Part of it's that our staff has grown and changed with it, and so over time we have a great staff that has worked with a wide variety of types of clients, and they have a lot of experience, which is very important when we start doing an implementation type scenario in an engagement. So if we go a little bit further, we're committed to making sure that the products that we carry are quality products. And we're large enough to be able to give you the solid service that are required for implementation, yet we're small enough where we can still personalize that service to your requirements. So it's kind of an important piece. We actually carry two different products at this point. We carry Acumatica, which is why we're here today. And we also carry Microsoft Dynamics GP. And again, we're going to concentrate on the Acumatica side at this point. So why is it important? What is important in your selection of what you're going to pick for a product? And you can kind of go through this different ways, and there's kind of different pieces to this. But here's what clients are finding are important in their selection process. So if we take a look at this and we say the technology, all right, and that's kind of a broad term, but the idea is you want to make sure it's truly a cloud product that's reliable. You can customize it, it's upgradable. So even if you customize it, it's still upgradable, and it can run virtually on any device. Basically, if you have an internet connectivity, you want to be able to access your data and your information wherever you happen to be. So if you happen to be, at home and, you had to call in for sick and you need to do a quick approval for something, you pull out your tablet or your smartphone, do the approval. Or maybe you have to work home from a day. We've all had the last year and a half or so where, some people are working from home, some are working in the office, some are in a mixed environment. And that's going to probably continue over the next, period of time where, more people are working in multiple environments. They're working from home, they're working from other places, and they're working from the office. And in those kind of cases, we want to make sure that you can pretty much use whatever device you have. So if you have a laptop at home, it happens to be a Mac, it doesn't matter. If you have a Linux box at the office or a Windows box, it should all work seamlessly. So that's kind of important. The functionality becomes important. The product is only as good as what it can do for you, right? So it comes down to the product needs to do the functionality that you need it to have, need it to do. So when you look at that as a scenario of, core accounting, yep, we can do that. But also, suppose you're a manufacturer or you need project accounting, or maybe you're a small construction firm or HVAC firm. If you need route accounting, maybe you deliver canisters of carbonation to clients, for example, to restaurants, for example, those kind of things. Also, if you do fleet management, and one of the nice parts about Acumatica is it would have all that functionality for you right from Acumatica. You wouldn't have to buy a third-party product or do another product and integrate it. It's all integrated and it's right there. The next is making sure that you can integrate. There are some systems where maybe certain industries where it's important to be able to integrate from another system. A lot of companies or organizations have kind of multiple business types. We have scenarios where we have a client where on one side they sell snack foods, that you would buy at a Walmart or Target, for example. Then there's other one, on another side of their business, they sell, they distribute wines to liquor stores and things like that. Very different businesses. right? So in one case, it was very easily handled with Acumatica. In their case, on the alcohol side, they had a scenario where they decided to go with specialized software that we integrated in. So it made it a lot easier for them to operate. And the key to that is having those open APIs to be able to integrate to. So that way you can have those seamless integrations that are a lot easier to maintain. You also want a product that has OData built in. And what OData integration allows you to do is maybe you have some people or certain people that you don't want to allow into the system, but you can give them rights for certain parts of the data outside of the system. So it could be a scenario where maybe you give them an Excel spreadsheet with a price list in it. And every so often they need to refresh that data because the price changes and things. So if you have a sales rep that you don't want to allow them in the system, then you could actually do that. Or maybe you do that with a customer where you actually give them a scenario where, hey, what are the current dates of expected delivery, for example? And you can actually give them a spreadsheet. They could refresh just their data, okay? And they would be able to see on a current basis whatever you have in the system for those delivery dates. So OData allows you to do that. A lot of products actually support OData. If you look at the Microsoft Office suite, for example, if you're looking at Microsoft Access or if you're looking at Excel, OData is supported by those. So it's pretty straightforward, okay, to do that integration. The built-in integration is included. There's a lot of products where if you wanted to integrate to them, they actually charge you extra for the integration tools. With Acumatica, those tools would be built in, so you would be able to use them whenever you needed to. All right. If we go a little bit further, reliability. What is the product built on? Is it built on something that's proprietary and then it kind of locks you into their system and then you don't have a way to get out? Okay, or is it built on fairly common technology that's well supported, has a lot of technology that's relatively current? And in this case, that becomes important over time because the reliability of those core pieces of the product are going to affect your downtime and how often you have any issues with the system. So the idea of it is trying to make sure you have a lot of uptime with the system. And Acumatica is built on Microsoft SQL Server using primarily C#. So it ends up being a very stable environment to develop in. It's well executed, and has been stable for many years now. AWS is built is what it's run on. So when you go SaaS model, which is what 98% of customers do with Acumatica, it has an extremely high reliability rate. And part of the reason they picked AWS is because of the reliability rate. And that becomes important again for that uptime that you want to ensure that you have. Vendor support, okay? And there's kind of multiple pieces to this. We have vendor support that we get from the vendor. There's vendor support that you can get directly from the vendor, and then how well are we trained, and what knowledge do we have to help support you as well. So those all become important factors in the training or in the vendor support area. And the idea of it is that Acumatica is basically a worldwide organization. We'll show a little bit of that in a bit, but the idea of it is they have staff that's 24/7 availability. So, if you happen to be working at 12 o'clock at night, hopefully this doesn't happen often to you if that's not your normal working hours. But the idea of it is there's somebody there to help support it in addition to us. And additionally, if you go to like Acumatica Summit, they actually give a lot of accessibility to their people. So John Roskell is the CEO of the organization, and he's mingling with customers and vendors intentionally because he's trying to get that feedback. He wants to talk to people, really learn what they're doing and how they're using the product. Those become important factors for that long-term relationship that we tend to have with these products. Customizability. We want a product, and you want a product that you're able to use to be able to upgrade to, update to what you need it to do exactly. So it could be a scenario where, hey, the product does, 95% what you need it to do, but if we added a date field on this particular document, that would save us a lot of time. And the nice part about Acumatica is you can add that field. And then the nice part about it is you can actually get the system upgraded without a lot of effort. So the idea of it is it would just become part of the normal upgrade process. So you wouldn't get locked into a version that ends up being 3 or 4 years old down the road. So the idea of it is keeping everything really upgradable as part of that as well. There's tools also to easily create dashboards and KPIs. We're going to talk about that a little bit later and show you a little bit of how the dashboards and KPIs work. You know, dashboards and KPIs are more than just that now. They tend to be working reports in a lot of ways for people, where they can actually not only be notified that, hey, something has occurred, but actually take you to the work environment to see what's going on with that, or maybe actually perform the work. And then last but not least, the customizability will also give, if there's a, you know, if you're in a very unique industry or you have a very unique requirement, there could be somebody that's already developed a product for that. So there's over 300 vendors now for, you know, third-party products for Acumatica. So an example of that is sales use tax. Okay, if you have a scenario where you're dealing with a lot of different states across the country, and you need to do reporting because you sell virtually across the country, you need to track sales tax. There's a tie-in for Avalara, for example, that's seamless, and it's one of those that has a very easy implementation, works very well. And the idea of it is it has a strong third-party support. And from an end user standpoint, you'll never know that that's actually happening. It's just going out to the web, grabbing the rates, recording the information, and later on, depending on your organization, you can either do the reporting for taxes within Acumatica, or you could have Avalara actually file the sales tax in most states. So that's kind of how that works. And then last but not least, the value of the product. What is the value to your organization? One of the things that's common in the industry is that the products, especially in the cloud environments, tend to be licensed by named user. And Acumatica is taking kind of a different approach, and it's based on a consumption model of basically functionality and basically the amount of performance that you require. So it's not really related to how many users that you have in the system. The nice part about that is that what happens in a lot of systems is that you have a nice workflow that maybe is for purchase order approval, for example. And then you have a couple people that maybe only need to do approvals once or twice a month. And then you're faced with a decision, do I want to pay a certain amount per month for that employee to be able to do those 2 or 3 approvals to keep the workflow the way it really should be for that department, for example? Or do we kind of bastardize you know, the workflow so that we have somebody else kind of step in for them to do that, so we save a few bucks? The idea of it is here, we don't have that scenario happening. We can actually, you know, develop our workflows as we need them to actually work. And that becomes a huge benefit to your organization. Okay, so why Acumatica? And we'll talk a little bit about it, and we're going to talk a little bit about the organization, because most people haven't heard of Acumatica, or if they have, they don't know much about it yet. So the idea of it is, you know, it's a rapidly growing ERP product in the cloud. It's been around since 2008. But what we're going to talk about here is, here's kind of their worldwide presence. So if you take a look at the items that are in blue here, like service and support, global headquarters is actually in Bellevue, Washington. So they're a US company. You know, you take a look at their different engineering, different support areas, et cetera, to go across. So for example, they have a sales and support facility down in Virginia. They have another one in Columbus, Ohio, okay, in the United States. And they have one out, I don't remember exactly when the one on the West Coast is. It's in California for the construction, okay? So it's hard to keep up, okay? If you go a little bit further, you'll notice there's a regional headquarters for South Africa, for Africa itself. You have in South Africa. Then you have, you know, another engineering in India. You have another office in Australia. You go across, they have some an engineering office in Moscow. So the answer is that it's truly a worldwide organization. Now, if you look at these brand names that are here, for example, MYOB might be one you're familiar with. He's been marketing in the United States historically. They're not any longer in the US, but they in the 90s and early 2000s, they were MYOB, manage your own business. And what they ended up doing is, instead of developing their environment and developing a product from scratch, they actually licensed the Acumatica product line as a core to their product, and they modify it for the Australian market and New Zealand market. So that's kind of the difference in how they kind of approach it. It's the same with like Visma, the same with Senior Software. Again, they're using the core of the product, or at least the development environment, so they don't have to really develop everything. And the answer is that's kind of how we actually have a lot of, beyond our actual user counts and our install counts, there's actually a lot more using the technology that the product is based on. So to give you an idea, Acumatica has roughly 10,000 installations across the world. So gives you a rough idea. All right. So, they talk about connected business. Okay. Sounds like a minor detail, but it's really kind of important. It's a scenario they actually started as a cloud business. It's not something that's been adapted. It wasn't, premise-based and they adapted it. It's always been developed for the cloud from day one. That becomes an important factor because certain things then work the way a little bit more smoothly for clients and for you. Okay, so we're going to talk about here the market leadership. You can see here, Acumatica is known for how easy it is to use. The interface is very consistent, has a commonality throughout, whether it's a third-party product or actually developed in the system. But the idea of it is, it's also, the idea is the automation that can be built into the product as well, and you can control that automation. So one of the things that they are, if you take a look here, they're in the mid-market, they're one of the highest usability, they're one of the leaders in the mid-market. So the idea of it is, if you take a look at usability, they actually really come up really high, all right? Their functionality is growing rapidly as well. One of the things that's great about Acumatica, and this is to your benefit, is they spend roughly 70% of their revenue dollars on development of the product. That is exceedingly unique in the industry. Most products spend between 25 and 30% in their peak years of development. So what you see is as the product updates, the functionality does expand into a lot of areas each time there's an update. Okay, but the usability is important. It makes it easy to train and get running on the system. How do people feel about the product? Sounds like a minor detail, except for, how happy are customers basically with the company and with the product, and how happy are partners with the product and the company they're working with in Acumatica? The answer is they're very happy. Okay, so if you notice here, there's only one other organization that's kind of come in higher as far as the emotional connection of the product and the people at the product, and that's Oracle ERP. Now, Oracle tends to be a little bit more expensive than Acumatica. When I say that, way more expensive than Acumatica. So it's very unique to have that kind of relationship with your customers and with you that most organizations don't even offer or try to develop, and that's kind of an important part. G2 customer satisfaction. How happy are the customers that are using the product? All right, so if you take a look, Acumatica is way over here on the right, so it's one of the highest satisfaction rates of the products in the market today. And that's actually how happy are the people with the product itself. If you notice, they're also one of the momentum leaders. All right, so it becomes an important part. That's a G2 review. Okay, so they're highlighting to make sure they know who they are. So you get kind of the idea. Additionally, Acumatica has been named Best Manufacturing Solution for several years in a row now by PC Magazine, PC Editor's Choice several times in a row now for several years now. They've won the Cody Awards now for several years. Those are important pieces because they both address both technology and the functionality within the product. So, the idea of it is if you're in any of those industries or if you're in different areas, depending on who's doing the testing, the answer is it's great to be with a product that has that kind of listing. All right. And again, if you take a look with Gardner Group and G2, again, they've ranked very high or the highest in customer satisfaction. And that's great. And that's important because as you go to pick products, that becomes an important factor. So what makes Acumatica a little bit different? One is their technology leadership on a future-proof platform. We're going to talk a little bit more about the platform in a minute. All right, but the idea of it is they built the technology and they're kind of leading the market really in how they've done their technology compared to everybody. Their functionality is really outstanding. They have great functionality for a lot of different business types, including especially business like manufacturing, distribution, and construction. Okay, so they really are building in a class of functionality. It's integrated well together, et cetera. Ethical business practices. Okay, the contracts with Acumatica are very simple. Okay, and that doesn't sound like a big deal, except for we've all read 35 pages of small print legalese, and looking, and then what happens if somebody has a disagreement? They come back and they have a battle of the small print, right? From the attorneys do. The answer is their contracts are very simple and they're pretty straightforward to work with, meaning that they try to always be fair with everybody. That's us as well as the customer. Those become important pieces. So let's start with a future-proofing of the platform. So what's important about this? If you take a look here, I know this looks a little confusing at first, but you notice here we have at the bottom, we have this tech stack. So this is what basically the whole product is based on, what it's built on. All right, and then we have the above piece, which is the cloud platform itself. The environment that we start to see, basically it's what they develop the cloud pieces of it in. Then we have the actual product. All right, and then above that, we actually have connected applications, like I mentioned Avalara before, or you have e-commerce. Maybe you're using Spotify or something like that, and you're doing a web sales and basically need to integrate to it. Those kind of things, or maybe specialized shipping and logistics. Okay, if you're managing container shipments from across the ocean, those kind of things, those are connected applications. Then you also have verticalized and embedded applications, meaning they actually look just like Acumatica, and to an end user, they'll never know that they're third-party products. And so to give you an idea, you have some nonprofit, property management, different government contracting, rental equipment, there's hundreds of others, but the idea is they're there. So let's talk about what this all means. What this means is things are kind of built in a scenario where everything is in its own little bucket. Okay, or its own little isolated area. So what ends up happening is if they decide they want to update the version of SQL Server on the back end, they make the modifications to that piece of that code, and what happens is all the hooks are there. They don't have to recode everything that they did in functionality to create a GL entry. All they have to do is modify that piece that hooks it into the product. By the same token, when HTML5 came out, this container was basically updated, okay, to support HTML5. And so what they do is they took out the old piece that connected everything to the web browser, and then they put in the new piece, and they just replaced HTML5, right? They didn't have to go through and recode the rest of the product for that. That's true throughout the product. So all these things that you see here that are separate blocks, that's how it's done. If they upgraded the version of C#, for example, they're using, it's not like everything gets redone. It's a scenario where they pull out the block, they put in a new block. By the same token, at the next highest level, there's different pieces to get updated. So if they decide, hey, we're going to make an update to our reporting engine, they make that change to the reporting engine. It'll teach me, won't it? They'll make that change to that reporting engine. There we go, for reporting. And then what will happen is they'll take that block out, they'll put that container back in, and then they've updated the whole thing because the hooks are all that's the connection. And again, for the same thing through the industries, the financial, if they make a change to how general ledger entry works, they don't have to rewrite the whole world for that. They do it piece by piece, and then each block gets put in and put out. Now, that doesn't mean they don't connect. It means they do. They actually are very integrated. But the key to it is they don't have to worry about the integration points on. They don't have to worry about rewriting the whole product to make sure things flow through like they should. Okay, so that's kind of the idea, and that's the future proofing. Now, keep in mind that people tend to use these products on an average of 13 years. All right, and if you think about 13 years from now, that's 2034. I do not know where we'll be then, but the idea of it is if you're on the average of that, the answer is it's important to know that the product is future-proof, and in technology terms, that's a long time. And they need to be able to update both the technology and the functionality as things change. So that becomes very important. So that's kind of the idea. That's how they future-proof it and why. And that's kind of the thought process on it. If we go a little bit further, okay, what's their cloud partnerships? Basically, here's some of the major ones. They're actually located in Bellevue, Washington, which is halfway between Amazon and Microsoft. And they actually have offices on both campuses, so they can actually resolve issues, fix things, come out with newer technology, see what's coming, et cetera. So they're very tightly connected to both of these. So if you take a look, AWS is where they're hosting the product. They do have other pieces in there. They're on the AWS marketplace, et cetera. So the idea of it is they're there. And they're well connected to Amazon. Secondarily, it can be hosted on Microsoft Azure. Most people will actually pick the AWS for a variety of reasons. There's a lot of tight connection between Office 365 and Power BI, among other Microsoft products. So the idea of it is they're also using a lot of the Microsoft stack in the background for the development of the product. So the idea of it is it's very important that they're actually kind of located there, and they have very good partnerships with both of these organizations. Okay. The cloud infrastructure, one of the important parts of this, I think they click one more time and it shows a little bit closer. But if you take a look, this is the magic quadrant from Nucleus, I believe, if I remember right. Hard to remember. And in this case here, they take a look at basically who's leading in functionality for the cloud hosting scenarios, as well as who has the most reliability. So if you notice here, you have the ability to execute and a completeness of vision. So if you notice, Amazon is kind of the leader right now still. Okay, for the last several years, the others have done a lot of work, and so has Amazon, and they're still the reliability leader. They still work really well. So the idea is they pick the top two. Okay, so keep in mind, if you take a look at some of the others, you might have heard and whatever, but reliability that the platform is based on becomes very important, and that's why they picked Amazon Web Services for their core of most of their hosting. Okay, so it gives you kind of an idea. All right, modern security. Okay, again, this is a block that can be put in and out as things need to update, because security is one of those things we're all concerned with. We've all heard scenarios of different things going on recently. Hopefully, you don't live on the East Coast and in some of the areas that had trouble with gas and not to last too far. But the idea of it is they want to make sure that it has less likelihood of that occurring. All right, so basically they have high-end security. You can kind of scale it up to what makes sense for you. Okay, most people end up using two-level authentication. There's some other pieces that can tie into some other authentication bases like AD, Microsoft Active Directory in the cloud, or it could tie to, for example, some of the others like Google and some others. But the idea of it is keep in mind they have a lot of capability with security. BI analytics. There's a lot of capability built right in the product. However, maybe that doesn't suffice for everything you're trying to do, but you can actually do everything from spreadsheets to Power BI to some of the others that are listed here like Tangerine and Velexio. And so you have a lot of capability for developing your dashboards and your analytics the way you want. So for example, with Power BI, you can actually use Microsoft Power BI to develop maybe a unique scenario that maybe they do a specific graph type that you like better or whatever, but you can then embed that right in the dashboard within Acumatica. So the idea of it is it's tightly integrated. No rekeying information, no downloading, no uploading. You basically put in your login information for the hooks, develop it, and then you say, hey, I want to present this as a widget. Okay, and we'll see a little bit of that later on. I'm not going to actually do a direct Power BI, but I can show you how the widgets work and you'll get an idea for it. Okay, from anywhere, any device. We talked about that as to why it's important to make sure that you look for that when you're searching for a product. So if you notice here, they have a desktop, a laptop, your cell phone, watch, limited use there because the screen size may be a little small. And then you can actually even use Alexa to give commands and responses for information. So if you say, something, like how much inventory do I have for X? And it will come back and say, here's your available inventory in X. Okay. For the cell phone, the thing that's a little bit unique, if you notice, there's a difference in the way it looks because of the screen resolution. It's actually running the exact same code. And through the app, it knows that it's running on a different resolution size. So what it does is kind of reorganize certain things. So you notice here where our dashboard is kind of built out and we have the room of the desktop or laptop to use. On here, this is basically a dashboard. You notice they verticalize it because of the screen resolution capabilities. Now, that being said, because it is a true web app, you can run it through the browser on your cell phone. The only issue is that it gets really small and hard to see. And then you start scrolling around your screen all the time. So if you don't want to install the app, you can always still look at it, do certain things perhaps, but the idea of it is it's running the same code either way. Okay, cross-connected workflows, business to business. Okay, so if you get into a scenario where You want to make sure that you have the connections to the outside world, to your organization. You can set those up. Okay. By the same token, within the product itself, the modules themselves are truly integrated. It's not a scenario where, hey, we have project over here, and hey, I'm operating a manufacturing, and I manufacture something that goes into a project. In this case, we can actually assign that project, basically task. Okay, for example, if I'm manufacturing something for a specific task in the project, I can actually assign that in the manufacturing module, or actually generate it from the project module to create a manufacturing order, and then actually produce that manufacturing item, whatever that item happens to be for the project, and it'll show up when it's complete onto the project. So it's truly integrated across there. Okay, and you might do different things depending on the scenario of how you're doing things. And at least, you might set up a notification to the project manager, say, hey, this is available for the project at this point, those kind of things. Okay, so it's truly integrated. AI and machine learning. And we actually have the ability to easily automate a lot of activities within the system. So for example, if say you get a large order in the system, and all of a sudden you get $1 million order, and maybe that's large for your organization. And if they have a scenario where, hey, if we get $1 million order, I want it to notify these 3 people. You can easily set that up. By the same token, it could be a scenario where if somebody changes the terms on a customer, maybe you want that person to be able to make those changes. But you know what? If they change it to one of these 3 different types, okay, I want it to automatically notify me that somebody's made that change. And so you can do all kinds of things like that. Additionally, you can set up the automation so that, for example, once you get all said and done with shipping a product out the door, maybe at the end of the day, you want it to automatically send out the invoices. You can set up that automation to occur that way. So that's where the automation steps come in, and basically configuring them to your organization's requirements. So it works for you versus, hey, I got to remember to do X, right? So then you have interactive assistance, where as you're doing entry or as you're trying to use help, those kind of things, they basically have AI built in to help you and help guide you to the proper help. So they're actually using that within the system directly. And that kind of relates to intelligent advisor as well. So the idea of it is they're making the product work for you versus, you're working for the product. It's kind of important. There's a big difference there when it's working for you. All right. So over time, the product becomes more and more efficient for you and for your organization. So best in class business industry functionality. If we take a look at some of this as we go down a little bit further, here's kind of the class module, or the core areas that they have. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the advanced areas in a minute. But you have financial management, inventory management, they're considered core. You have project accounting, which again is considered core. So you have projects to manage. Payroll is one of the core modules. Customer management, customer CRM basically is built into the product as an option. So the idea of it is it allows you to help manage customers and support them. And then it actually ties in through the rest of the system, which is kind of nice. So for example, if perhaps the accounting department puts either automatedly or intentionally, they put a customer on hold, or the customer goes on credit hold because they're over their credit limit or their timetable for having credit outstanding, it will automatically put them on credit hold. Well, the nice thing about it, when it's tied together with CRM and customer management, it actually lets basically the salesperson or the person creating an opportunity know that, hey, these people are on hold. How much do you want to pursue that? That becomes a question, right? Or maybe it's something where the person gets notified and they say, yep, I need to go contact them and see what's going on. So get them involved, those kind of scenarios. So that's the advantage of having it integrated tightly. And then you have additionally field service. Okay, so you sell copy machines, and you want to go out and send your people out to make those fixes or track maintenance on them, or do preventive maintenance, etc. Right? So if we go into financial management, just to give you an idea what the functionality is and how broad it is, out of the box, the system has multi-currency, ARP, cash management, tax management, various types, deferred revenue, intercompany accounting, recurring revenue and contracts, fixed asset tracking. So if you're doing fixed assets, it actually is integrated in very tightly. Bank feeds and automated reconciliation. If you have a large number of banking accounts or cash accounts, or a scenario where you have a lot of transactions in an account, that can actually be pretty nice because it actually links up directly to your bank and actually pulls in and does an auto reconciliation. Can save a tremendous amount of time. Automated expense management. So basically, you have people where they can record their expenses on their cell phone. It feeds in the system for approval and things like that. So it's very, very powerful that way, and it's built in. And then you have the AP document recognition. So if you sell, if you end up having an AP voucher come in that you need to get into the system, you can actually just scan it or upload the PDF, because a lot of them come through email now, and then basically it'll use AI to recognize the document and bring it in. By the same token, it'll do the same thing on a expense report. You can take a picture of it, it'll recognize the amounts and things like that on the expense as you take a picture of the receipt, and then it'll feed through the rest of the system, okay? Could be a scenario you might have to feed some additional information or update a piece of it, but the idea of it is it's gonna bring in the bulk of that information for you. Project accounting. Basically, if you're doing that, it does, everything from, revenue recognition, expense allocations, those kind of things is required. Approvals and alerts is required throughout the project. So it's very, very useful for those companies that actually require project accounting. Okay, so the general business edition, the idea of it is, remember I said these things all integrate. This is what this is trying to show you. So the idea of it is, hey, we can do this mobile. The payroll easily is integrated to the general business edition. All these pieces all tie together, and they go through that integration process because they're all basically developed as one. Okay, so you take a look, it gives you kind of that overview. Now, the specific industry solutions are available. You have the general business edition, okay, which is kind of a generic, hey, we do a lot of different things, but we may not have something that's that specific. That's what that is. The construction edition is meant for organizations to do subcontractor contracting, HVAC contracting, those kind of things, subcontracting. Distribution edition has some basically warehouse management capabilities built in, et cetera. And working with that. Manufacturing edition adds on to the distribution edition basically, and allows you to actually create production orders, bills of material, et cetera, routings, et cetera, for production tracking and MRP. So those become important factors if you're in that particular area. Go a little bit further. Then you have the retail commerce edition. And what that is primarily is pre-built integrations from various e-commerce solutions. So for example, if you're using Spotify, not Spotify, if you're using some of the different, like BigCommerce, for example, as one of the, your commerce solution, basically there's a pre-built integration from there to Acumatica and vice versa. So you can actually maintain your item, for example, in Acumatica with the descriptive information, pictures, et cetera, and then it can go up to the cloud in the store, so to speak, for the sales side, and then you don't have to actually maintain it in two places. Pricing and things like that can also be integrated. So that's the retail commerce edition. Inventory and order management, we're going to talk a little bit. You can see here it does some pieces where you can actually see across multiple warehouses what you have for inventory availability. You can see lot and serial number tracking, multiple costing methods, depending what your organization's using. And then you can actually set up automated replenishment and or suggested purchase order information as things go on. So for your order management, you have a lot of flexibility for pricing and discounting. Again, warehouse and management and barcoding. So when you go to fulfill those orders, how do you either receive that in on the purchase order side, but on the sales side, are you using barcodes to actually go pick the information, the items to be sold and shipped? Okay, and it does handle drop shipments and returns, and then those types of things. And there's also requests for requisitions. So you can actually basically get approvals for your purchase order side before it's a purchase order. So that step before it's a PO, it can either go in as a request or it can go in as a requisition, go through an approval process, and then again, a final approval process if you want on the PO. And again, you can see here on the distribution edition, just give you an idea how it all integrates together. So, basically if you go through and you buy something for inventory, the purchase order integrates with that. Okay, and then when you receive it, it will update inventory, it will update accounts payable, general ledger is necessary, et cetera. So it's tightly integrated as we go through. Okay. And the manufacturing edition, just a quick one, quick summary. It has bills of material, MRP planning, MRP, so you have correct materials available, or maybe you need to make some others for stock, for example. It has planning and scheduling, estimating, the product configurator, which allows you to take and say, I sell something specific, but it can come in 4 different colors. And the idea of it is maybe the configurator can say, you have different options for each of the pieces, and you want to make sure the colors match. You could actually set it up so that the configurators there, once they pick this, then these things become available as choices for the other options. And then it could be color match, could be a scenario where some things aren't available in certain colors, they don't show. So you can actually, when you sell it, basically to the product configurator, you can say, here's what we're going to make. All right, and then you have production management. Okay, so you can actually manage your workflows through the production facility. Compliance, AICPA and SOC, as well as PCI compliancy as well. Now keep in mind for PCI compliancy, Acumatica never ever stores the actual credit card number in the system. All it does is have a token to that particular card, for example, if it's required. So it becomes important to recognize that. Okay, so Acumatica, as I said before, one of the things important, customer bill of rights. You take a look at, kind of the key ones I look at here is sustainability, the pricing and the annual increases of no more than 3%. If you've ever been in a contract with a cloud provider, some of them in the ERP market in particular have had significant price increases on an annual basis at times. Acumatica is guaranteeing that that's not going to happen to you. They basically consistent 24/7. Access to their data, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but the important part about the access to the data is that you have access to your data. It's your data. So you can actually do snapshots, bring it down to a local system, et cetera. So it all becomes important pieces. And so it gives you an idea. It's the way they want to operate, very important. Okay. The other part that's important is the system does scale to your organization. Okay, so it's not a scenario where we talked about the licensing. We don't have to worry about the users, but there's no user fees, et cetera, those kind of things on a per user basis. So the idea is the system grows with you very easily as you grow your organization. And I talked a little bit about data ownership. Dual layers of support, both from us as Hudson River Computing and Acumatica. So you have those dual layers, and there could be different reasons for picking one over the other. One of the keys is we tend to know your organization really well when we help through the engagement. So because of that, we can many times solve an issue more quickly than Acumatica can, because they have to learn more about what you're doing before they say, oh, do this to correct that. So those become important pieces. Embedded integrations, these are some of the integrations are already done. I mentioned Avalara before. You notice here's Salesforce, Power BI, Smartsheet. You have, if you're on construction, Procore, Google Maps, if you want to do maps, Office 365. So those are all pre-built. Okay, just a quick sampling of some of the Acumatica customers that are out there that you may have heard of in different industry types. Okay. And then they do have training online. So it's a scenario where they have some recorded videos for some assistance for kind of the basic training, so to speak, of the product. And then where we can help is kind of expand upon that and make sure what you're doing is tailored to you. So keep in mind, Acumatica has delivered all these things already. They're actually out there and it's there. It's not something that's kind of dreamt about. We've actually seen it in operation. We've been a partner with Acumatica since 2015, and we have seen all these things happen. And so it's kind of very important how that works. So quick summary, we have a long-term commitment to our customers. We're the ones sitting across the table. It becomes very important. We're not totally product centric. We want to make sure that the requirements that you have are met by the product that we carry. And if it's not, there's times where you just have to say no. We have a high success rate for our implementations and engagements. The ERP experience in DNA, both Acumatica and us understand your business processes. What do you need to do? And then we just need to tailor it a little bit for your specific requirements. Sometimes here are these broad things, but here's the narrowing down. Acumatica was born in the cloud. They're developed in the cloud from scratch. So it becomes very important. Access to any device, anywhere, very important. Flexible deployment options. You know, if you need to do it locally, you can, but most, 98% still do it in the cloud. And then you have consumption-based licensing. All right, so that's kind of where we're going to go from there. So now let's take a look at what the product looks like. All right, so it becomes kind of important. So, so I'm just going to mail that. So if we go a little bit further, I'm going to actually get rid of my PowerPoint here. So let me do that for a second. All right. You guys are all tired of PowerPoint by now, I guarantee it. So if we take a look, when we first log in Acumatica, we see something like this. And this will vary depending upon what your job is and what you're doing and how you've personalized it. But this is an example. So right now I'm logged in as an admin, so I pretty much have rights to everything within the system. You take a look here on the left, this is a controller. So one of the things kind of nice is, as a controller, a lot of times they have to look kind of overview of the whole organization in different ways. So if you take a look here, we have, total accounts receivable, total overdue, total AP overdue, those kind of things. As we go through, how much cash do we have on demand over the next 30 days? What's the open PO amounts, etc. The nice thing about this is not strictly just data. I can actually click on any one of these and it'll show me what it contains. So if I click here and click on total AP, this is going to show me the total accounts payable that's outstanding and who it's owed to and what's the aging for it. All right, so this is just one example. It's actual real data. Now, the nice part about it is we go through is like, if I want to put this in Excel because I want to do further analysis, anywhere where you see a listing like this in Acumatica, you can click on the Excel button. And when you click on the Excel button, it drops into Excel. Numbers are numbers, letters are letters, dates are dates. Okay, so it's a scenario where you can very easily and quickly determine kind of what you have going on. So this download will appear a little different depending on your browser, because if you're using, I'm using Vivaldi, which is a derivative of Chrome, but I have it set up so that it's automatically going to kind of pop up with this. Sometimes with Chrome, you'll have a listing down in the bottom left that it's been downloaded. You have to click on it then to open it. So I'm just going to actually save that and then open it up. And then you'll see that here's my Excel spreadsheet. And that's pretty much throughout the whole system. So I can very easily see that these are numbers, has my title, due dates, etc. We go over a little bit further. You'll see here's all my columns I had. And so the idea of it is that the system very tightly integrates if you need to do that additional analysis type scenario. That's not the goal to have all your reporting through Excel, by the way. The idea is that's for the additional analysis you might do on an occasional basis. So that's kind of how that works. So that gives you kind of an idea. Now, as we go through, you can see here, if I click on dashboards, there's a built-in dashboards for a whole bunch of different pieces. Okay, I clicked on the controller dashboard, but if I click on the financial flow dashboard, this is a different style dashboard. This actually shows you how things integrate from the system and how they flow through to general ledger, basically. So if you notice here, I can see kind of any one of these, and these are working dashboards. So if I need to enter a voucher, I can actually go in here and click on bills, and it will actually take me to that. Okay, so the idea is you don't typically need that for the controller types or for the clerk types and in accounting, but sometimes that works well for some of the people that happen to be like salespeople, where you want to walk them through a process in CRM. So a lot of times the CRM dashboard works that way, where you have it kind of like where you have the lead come in, you walk them through the process of turning that lead into an actual sale someday. So the idea of it is you have that kind of process set up. Okay, and they respond to that kind of picture type scenario. In addition, if we take a look at like the AR/AP dashboards, if I pick the AP clerk, it's going to focus on what they do on a day-to-day basis. What do they need to pay attention to? Well, if I look at this like, oh, I have 23 overdue accounts and I have 75 overdue bills. If I click on it and say, what are those bills? I can actually look at it. All right, so you can see here, it's basically it's highlighted in red because these are the ones that are all behind. Okay, and so I can actually look at that. And if I want to say, what is this, $1.5 million? I can actually click on it. It'll actually take me down and I can drill on it and actually see the original information. All right, so this gives you an idea. So here's my lead drywall, here's my billing. Do I have files attached? Yep, I have a file attached. I think this is the invoice, it should be. So you can see here, you can't see it very well because of the scenario, but the invoice is here for $47 million. No, I'm just kidding. So the idea of it is you can actually get an idea of what what it was for. So any notes that were on here, any activities that pertain to that, if there's been emailed against, etc., that would all show up on here. So as you go through, it becomes very, very important as to how that works. By the same token, I can actually look at all the AP bills, and maybe I only want to look at the ones that are over $500,000, for example. Well, one of the things that's nice about these windows, I can easily say, yep, I only want to see the ones that are greater than 500,000. I got to type one more, click OK. So it very easily narrows down what I'm looking at. And on top of that, I can narrow it down even more. Maybe I only want to see the ones that, the account name starts with blue, or starts with a B, just to keep it simple. And you can see here, so I can see here, these are the ones where the account name was B, and the amount overdue is more than 500,000. Now, the nice part about it is I can actually save that, and I can actually say B over 500,000. If you can type, okay? And I can make it a shared configuration if I click OK. And the answer is, now I have it here as a tab. So anytime I need to access that, if I came in here like it started before, I can say, well, what are the ones that are B over 500,000? I can see them very quickly and easily. All right, so notice now, not all of them are past due. So you can see here how you can have it automatically highlight things that are different about the individual records or fields. So the idea of it is allows you to maintain that and very easily make that work for you. All right. Additionally, you take a look here, the MJP clerk, maybe they're worried about cash position. Any of these can be drilled down on. If I click on it, you'll see that it takes me to that. So in this case here, I was looking at cash by period. So that's what it's showing me. Here's the cash for March in this case. Okay, so you get kind of the rough idea how that works. It's very powerful to have that drill down and have that workability as you go through. If we look at dashboards in another way, it could be a scenario where the warehouse manager uses his to help determine, okay, what's going to ship today, for example. So if you notice here, it can say, okay, orders to ship. Which ones are orders to ship? Well, let me click on that and see what it is and say, yep, do I want to ship these? Yeah, let me ship this particular Geurig order to Ace, Alta Ace, okay? So I can actually click on this and say, yep, let me look at the rest of the order. Does it look okay? It's past due. And yep, I'm ready to create the shipment. I can go ahead, and if I have it in stock, it's going to tell me if it doesn't. I can go ahead and create the shipment, click OK, and now I've created the shipment for that particular order. So what ends up happening is, oops, I did not create the shipment. I don't have enough product. Oops. What it is the product is old enough where I don't have the product. So it kind of comes back. Let me go to a newer order. That's the issue with things in a demo company. So let me pick a newer order. Let me ship this one, okay? And then that way you can see how it kind of works. So if I click on create shipment, click OK. So at this point, I've created the shipment, and then the warehouse can go pick it and then do the shipment. All right, I hope. Yep, created the shipment this time. So now I have my shipment that's ready to go. They can update, how it was shipped. Maybe they had to change the FOB point, the ship via, how did it ship? Go FedEx, UPS, those kind of things can all be updated. Now, the nice part about it is once I have that kind of refresh, I'm gonna push this to refresh, okay, just so you can have an idea. But every so often, these would all update. So what would end up happening is, let me just refresh the whole window. The orders to ship would actually knock down, and now I have a shipment to pick, and so I can see here late shipments, and these are both late and both there. It's that same order. If I click on this and I was a shipping clerk, I would see my shipments to pick, and from here, if I'm the shipping clerk, you should see a shipment in there for me to do. Well, it's not my shipment because it's not set up for me right now. But the idea of it is I would be able to see the shipments. I'm going to pick open shipments. Here's my open shipment. You can, in the workflow, set up to assign to individuals. And I'm not normally a shipping clerk. So because of that, it knows that I'm not going to be set up for shipments. Okay, so you can get an idea there. You notice I'm not Steve's church. I'm admin, just to keep it entertaining. Okay, so you get kind of the idea why that worked that way. So the idea is these dashboards are meant to be working dashboards. The nice part about it is these can easily be adjusted. Okay, so if we take a look, we have our different widgets on here. If I want to create a widget based on something, I can. So if I want to turn around and say, yep, I want to do one based on certain invoices and things like that, I can do that. So these things are meant to be done by an end user, okay? And depending what level of design you want to allow, you can allow it so they can modify the existing one, or they can create one from scratch, etc. I'm full right, so I'm going to click design. And you notice here we kind of go into a design mode. If I want to add a widget, I click add widget. I pick the type of widget I want to add. Is it going to be a chart? It can be a data table. Okay, so this is a data table here, a chart. These are charts. Embedded page, maybe I have something where I have my maybe I'm the controller and I have to check my bank balances on a daily basis with the bank. I can actually embed the bank web page in here and I don't have to go anywhere. Headers, just what it sounds like. Put a title in here so it kind of organizes the dashboard somewhat. Key performance indicators, that's what all these are. These are all key performance indicators. I can put a link to a workspace, okay, or an item form, meaning that I can actually just link to another form within the system, or I can link to a workspace or another menu to go there. I can create pivot tables directly within the system. If I have a Power BI, I can embed it. I can do tread cards, I can do wiki pages. So if I wanted to do something fairly simple, I can actually pretty easily add that in there. So maybe I want to go and I'm going to add a chart. Okay, just to show you again how easy it is. I'm going to pick a particular inquiry screen. Now, this takes a little bit of time to kind of know, a little bit more time, but I'm going to say I'm going to look at invoiced items. Okay, so here's my invoiced items inquiry window. I can look here and say, okay, what do I want to do? All records. Remember how I built the filter before? Okay, you can do the same thing. That's all these are. This what this listing is. I'm going to do for key over the last 12 months. I can then still update that setting even more. Maybe I only want certain things in there. I can actually adjust this. I'm going to leave the filter settings the same. And then I got to configure it. What do I want the chart to look like? Well, I'm going to pick a column chart. Okay, notice here you have donuts and lines and stacks and bars, funnels, etc. I'm going to do the column. I'm going to pick a legend. I want it to be kind of the customer name. All right, if we look a bit here, I want the customer values descending yet. That's what I want. That sounds good. And then I want it to do based on the invoice date. So if I start typing date, you'll see here it sorts it down by only the dates. Here's my invoice date. What do I want for the legend? You know what? I'm going to do date rounding. I'm going to do it by month. And that's fine for the date format, okay, for that. And what colors do I want to use? I'm going to let the system decide. And then what value do I want to add up? I'm going to do the extended totals. Okay, so I'm going to do the extended amounts. That's the total of the invoice, okay, or the item that's been sold. I'm going to click OK. I'm just going to put a caption on it. I'm going to call it JK Test 1, 2, 3 to keep it simple. Click Finish. And at this point, I've created my graph. Okay, I've created my chart. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here so you can see it better. Okay, and at this point, I'm going to go out of design mode, and that's done. If I want to see the definition of any of these things, I can actually click on ABC or USA Bartending School, click on it, and that line item will actually show me the details that are making that particular part of the bar graph up of the chart. So the idea of it is I didn't have to do anything for that drill down to work. It just works. And again, I can go all the way back to the originating transaction. So the idea is I can keep drilling back to see the original data. So that's how easy the system is to kind of manipulate and use. So the idea is, when I say it's kind of a working reports, that's what these dashboards have become. All right, so it's just kind of a small example of, kind of Acumatica's power to work for you to make sure that, you get what you need out of the system. We've all worked with systems where, hey, I've recorded all that information and it's hard to get at it. You can't get the information you want out of the system. The key to Acumatica is that you are able to access the information and put it in a format you need. Okay, so I'm not going to try to get into a lot of long detail here. Okay, we're kind of out of time. We allotted an hour for today, but hopefully you were able to kind of learn a little bit about Acumatica, Hudson River Computing, as well as get an idea of how some of the newer products are working with accounting and ERP. It's a little bit different than what we're accustomed to if you're still on an existing system that you've been using for a number of years. These things have changed pretty rapidly over the last 5 to 10 years. And I know it sounds rapidly, but accounting people tend to be conservative. And the idea of it is this becomes kind of that part. Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick look at any questions we might have here, if there's any. I covered a lot of material pretty rapidly today. I hope that you got something out of it. It's important to us. It's kind of one of those things, we're trying to make sure everybody gets the time and gets the things they need out of these. It's really hard to do though at times. So I'm going to let you all go for the day. I hope you have a great day. And I hope you got something out of this that is important to you. Okay, thank you. Okay.